complex.
No, I can't come from Lil' Shorty, don't do no copping.
Ever since I was a G, I've been legit.
At first I thought
I guess he didn't know
just
any
another
better.
trick of my
Batman don't play with it, don't be decided. They slide to bite. Gotta be sick of this bag and I'm better. Get in the right.
a voice that knew exactly how to pronounce each syllable of my name. And it was getting closer. Night Running had become my salvation 6 months ago. After my promotion to senior project manager at Meridian Tech, the pressure had nearly crushed me. Endless meetings, impossible deadlines, constant emails, emails, all of it threatened to consume the personal life. My doctor had told me, "Find stress out there, prepare for a heart attack before 40." So I started running, and the quiet suburban streets after 10 p.m. became my sanctuary. The route was always the same: down Oak Ridge Drive, past the abandoned community center, through Westfield Park, and back home.
35, baby girl, I'm finna rock your face.
I drove against the pavement.
You got me in a crazy position. If you're on a mission, you got my permission. Just know what you want. I'm rocking.
Girl, I guess you didn't know any
That
better.
changed on
Batman don't play with it, don't be this the lighter. They slide to bite. Gotta be sick of this bag and I'm better.
Each golden orb was surrounded by a hazy halo, the light diffracted through millions of microscopic water droplets. My breath formed small clouds as I pushed through mile one, the familiar bay pavement to cold campus. Florence Plus, the machine thumped through my earbuds, drowning out the world. The first interruption was so subtle I almost missed it. A brief crackle of static like a radio caught between stations. I adjusted my earbuds without breaking stride, assuming they were just losing their Bluetooth connection. But the music grew, and I continued running. 3 minutes later, as I approached the darkened community center, the music dissolved into a noise. I slowed my pace, tapping my phone screen to check the connection. That's when I heard it. A whisper beneath the static, so faint I had to strain to make it out.
KB Flyboy.
Michael.
No, I can't be your Batman, cause I be robbing. I don't want no lock dance, bitch, give me 90.
The voice
Why you
wasn't
laughing?
loud, but it was clear, as if someone were running right beside me, lips almost touching my ear. I yanked out my earbuds and spun around, standing on the street. Nothing but shadows and mist. My heart pounded harder than the strum of light glass. The cool air suddenly insufficient for me. I convinced myself it must have been radio interference. The community center had housed a small station. Perhaps some equipment was still active, randomly broadcasting on frequencies that might I replaced the earbuds and switched from streaming music to the downloaded playlist on my phone, eliminating any possibility of picking up external signals. The music returned, and I resumed running, though at a faster pace than before. The familiar bass line of the radio track helped steady my nerves as I approached the entrance to Westfield Park. The park was poorly lit by design. The concession to the Homeowners Association's concern about light pollution more than the petty floodplain just eliminated. I'd grown accustomed to navigating the winding path by memory in the dim pools of light. I was halfway through the park when the music dissolved again, replaced this time not by static, but by immediate silence. Then the voice returned, no longer a whisper, but a clear, measured tone. Michael,
You ever make a video?
I've been watching you run.
All my
I
comments say, hey,
stopped dead in my tracks, my legs shaking to my this time holding them in my open palm. The tiny speakers emitted no sound that I could detect in the open air. I closed all eyes on my phone and started running. Cautiously, I was moving in silence. But it was short-lived. As I started jogging again, trying to convince myself it had been a glitch, the voice returned. This time without any electronic everywhere and nowhere at once, as if the night itself were speaking. I broke into a sprint, my lungs burned and sweat poured down my back despite the chill in the air. Half the head stretched into darkness. The distance to the party is in sudden sand and surrounding the lawn. When I finally burst out of the park, the maple streets filled over, hands on my knees, gasping for breath. The residential area was well lit, with porch lights and street lamps creating pools of comforting yellow light. Several houses still had windows illuminated. Signs of normal life continued undisturbed. I glanced back at the park entrance, half expecting to see someone or something emerging from the shadows. But there was only darkness and the gentle sway of tree branches in the night breeze. I walked the remaining distance home, my muscles tight, ready to run again.
Who got beat in your dreams?
The streets were empty except for a young
She
prowling
she drop on her knees. Cardi on my wrist, shit freeze on. She try bless me and I ain't even sneeze.
Yet I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed, of being watched by something that knew my name, At home, I double-checked all the locks before heading straight to the shower.
Comes the hurricane, bitch. Here comes the hurricane, bitch. Here comes the hurricane, bitch. Here comes the hurricane, bitch. Oh! Katrina, Katrina, Katrina. Katrina, Katrina, Katrina. Katrina, Katrina,
Called me sick for the first time in 20 years.
Sleep
Sleep had evaded me most of the night, leaving me staring at the ceiling, causing every creak to settle into my apartment. Exhaustion finally pulled me under a cloud. My dreams were filled with foggy streets and a voice that chased me through endless dark halls. By afternoon, I convinced myself that stress had manufactured the entire experience. Auditory hallucinations and uncommon cases of extreme fatigue and anxiety, according to the medical website. The human brain, when pushed to its limits, can create remarkably convincing sensory experiences. This explanation provides temporary hope until the sanity is reset. As darkness fell, I found myself checking and rechecking the locks. Path curved ahead, temporarily obscuring the next section from view. As I rounded the bend, I collided with something solid that hadn't been there seconds before. Stumbling backward, I found myself facing a figure standing motionless in the middle of the path. The dim lamplight revealed the figure tilted its head
I've been to
slightly
every continent, broken all the hearts in every hemisphere. And if I'm not the type of guy you like to circumvent, just remember not to love me when I deserve. I graduated at the top. I like to take advantage of the bourgeoisie. So if you have a fantasy of being a queen, maybe you should blow a couple bucks on me.
exactly
Money, money, green, green, money's all I need. Money,
mind your business.
Mr. Policeman, I don't want no trouble. I just wanna drop my dick a little down to the floor.
Always maintains the same distance. At the park exit, I risk a glance back.
Let me talk to him. Let me talk to him. Let me talk to him. From the back here.
Through me as I sat down, straight hands up.
Now you tryna pull up to my crib, I think you really gotta. I've been lonely too long, oh I can't be so strong. Take a chance, fall down, take my arm. I need you so, there's no time.
Treat me like what
Ghost office.
don't get me
Citing
dirty.
personal reasons.
Love on me.
Sometimes,
Love
as
on
I
me.
pack my
She
belongings,
cannot come with.
You can be a lover or a fighter, whatever you desire. Life is like a runway and you're the designer. Wings up, tell me baby,
I
do
catch
you
myself
wanna
If he cheating, I'm doing him worse. No, Uno, I hit the reverse. I ain't tripping the grip in my purse. And I'm doing him worse. I ain't tripping up. I ain't tripping the grip in my purse. I don't care, cause he did it first.
shadows of these walls, not just absences of light. Their presence watch the rotation. I've driven this route hundreds of times. Premonitions then. Now I'm not sure what to believe anymore. It was just past midnight when my headlights cut through the fog that had settled over the winding road leading to my house. The quarter
That girl is a real crowd, please. Small world, all her friends know of me. Young bull living like you know.
sparse street lights along the stretch created islands of sickly yellow
You ain't sucking dick for a foreign
amid a sea of
car.
darkness.
Gotta take a call. They want you at work, so girl, go do your list. I guess they
I was only
never
about
miss,
2
huh?
miles
You
from
got a
home
boyfriend,
when
I
my
bet
headlights
you
caught something at the edge of my vision. A figure standing motionless on the shoulder of the road. In these parts, it wasn't uncommon to encounter someone needing a ride, especially on nights when the weather turned unfriendly. Still, something about this particular silhouette sent a cold drip down my spine before I could even consciously process what I was seeing. As I approached, the figure became clearer. A man of average height, wearing what looked like a dark overcoat, his hands hanging loosely at his sides. Nothing particularly unusual, except that he wasn't dressed for the weather. No raincoat despite the drizzle that had started to fall. He stood
in my white
still,
tee.
facing the road.
Call up White Williams for the
Waiting
ice, please.
specifically for me.
They gon' white you before you white.
More out of instinct than genuine altruism. My mother had always warned me about stopping for strangers, but this was unusual. People looked out for each other here. That's what I told myself as my foot eased toward the brake pedal. The headlights fully illuminated him now, and I could see his face. That's when the rawness hit me with physical force. Where his eyes should have been, there were the rest of his features were ordinary enough. A straight nose, thin lips, middle-aged. But those eyeshadows made my blood freeze in my veins. My foot jerked from the brake to the accelerator of its own accord. Some primal part of my brain, the universal sign for stop or wait. It was such a normal human movement that it somehow made everything worse. In my rearview mirror, I could see him still standing there, perfectly motionless once again. His face turned to follow the retreating taillights. He didn't look angry or disappointed. He didn't look anything at all. I didn't take a full breath until I turned around the driveway, hands shaking so badly I struggled to put the car in park.
Money talks, money talks. Dirty cash, I want you. Dirty cash, I need you. Oh. Hey, Shadi. Hey,
Looking at a legend in the flesh.
Sunlight
Fresh about to
streamed
get you to
through
the
my
check.
kitchen window as I made
Blew a quarter
coffee.
key on the set.
The night's terror fading into embarrassment.
With no makeup, she is 10. And she the best with that hit. She don't want my who I want. And fuck who I don't. She got that A1 credit.
There was no sign of the man in the shadow of it. Just an empty stretch of road with tall grass and wildflowers swaying in the
I just watched the rain fall down the window pane, and I just brought the bass up, baby, I make it rain. Then I kick it with these savages, and they gon' bring the pain. See, I'ma take this bitch and break it back into like babies. See, I'ma take it watch you put some diamonds in the fade. And I know these niggas watching, so you know I'm moving safe. I could never love a stock, I'm in love with Mary Jane. And my shooter love is Glock, and he with it every day.
especially at night. My TV switching to static at 3 a.m.
Your brain, hey.
Peripheral vision, lingering a moment too long before I turned on the light, stretching in directions that defied the positioning of the sun. I'd catch myself staring at the dark corners of the house, half expecting to see someone staring back. Sitting at the foot of my bed, watching me. By the time I fumbled for the lamp switch, there would be nothing there. But the feeling of being observed persisted. About a week after my encounter, I was driving home late again when my headlights
Last man on the earth still couldn't resist. You're delusional, you're delusional. It's confusing, you're confused, you know why you're wasting your time. Got you
making each breath a conscious effort. As I rounded the bend where I'd first seen him, my car sputtered and died. Dead battery, empty gas tank.
Oh no no, oh no no, she's confident. Oh no no, oh no no, and I'm down with it.
With trembling hands, I tried to
Be your Batman, cause I be robbing. I don't want no lock dance, bitch, give me knowledge.
It was as if all electrical systems had The road stretched before me, bathed in moonlight and mist.
Shit.
Each step away from my car felt like moving deeper into someone else's territory. The night silences seemed to recede around me, creating a pocket of silence that followed as I walked. I'd gone perhaps half a mile when I felt it, a subtle change in air pressure, like the atmosphere itself had become attentive. The hair on my arms and neck rose and my mouth went dry. I didn't want to turn around. Every instinct warned against it. But humans are cursed with curiosity that overrides self-preservation. I looked back. He stood about 30 yards behind me, exactly as before. Average height, dark coat, ordinary in every way except for those abyssal shadows where eyes shone. He wasn't moving, wasn't approaching, just waiting. My legs nearly buckled in a surge of adrenaline. I forced myself to keep walking. Fast enough, my breathing shallow and rapid. I didn't look back at him, but I knew he was following. Not with footsteps, not with intimidating. He would simply be there, closer each time, if I turned around. The road ahead shimmered slightly.
in the party, I'm sipping on Pepsi. No, I'm sipping on Finn. We getting lit, we got fans out that land. On, hit it one time. Big breach, call on my line. Hey, light, use my slime. Come on.
That's why I was to my house was. My breath still forming clouds in the air, and it was dark. None of the small indicator lights from appliances
Jack,
or
you're doing a curtsy.
electronics
Have your cake and eat it. Baby, it's your
a fresh wave
birthday.
of dread washed over me as I reached for the light switch. I already knew it wouldn't work. The house remained pitch black, but in that moment of attempting to turn on the lights, I became aware of something else. A presence in the darkness with me. Not moving.
Think of it, everybody knows. They know me when it snows. I speed in, they froze. I know nothing by no lights. I'm just cold. 40 million subs or so. I've been told.
Trembling fingers.
Get him up, let me get up, let me get up, let me get up.
Nothing seemed out of place. Nothing was there.
What we doing? What we doing? Call up road, what we doing? What we doing? Okay, shut it, heading up.
Stop manipulating me!
The
Stop!
flashlight
Stop!
beam trembled.
This morning, I woke up today and this morning. In the morning, I woke up this morning, I woke up. And remember that every morning that I wake up, I woke up that fucking day. Just remember that.
Reflected behind me stood the figure. Those shadow eyes fixed on my reflection. I stumbled backward, dropping my phone. The flashlight beam spun crazily across walls and ceiling before settling, illuminating nothing but ordinary bedroom furniture. When I retrieved it and checked the mirror, it showed only a terrified face. For hours, I sat with my back against the bedroom wall, flashlight trained on the mirror, watching, waiting. As dawn approached, my phone battery died, plunging me back into darkness. I remained motionless, afraid that any movement might attract attention. Morning sunlight eventually filtered through my curtains, revealing a completely normal bedroom. Power was restored.
That's
Clocks
when he
blinking,
hit me.
needing to
Best
be reset.
idea I ever had in my
Outside,
entire
my car
life.
sat in
That's
the
the
driveway,
worst idea you
though
ever
I had
had in
no
your
memory of
entire
driving
life.
it home.
You just mad you didn't think
Since
of
that
it.
night, I've installed the brightest security lights money can buy around my property. I keep flashlights in every room. Sometimes, in dark moments, I catch glimpses of them, reflected in windows, or standing at the periphery of crowded places. Always watching with those eyes that aren't eyes. Always waiting. I've researched local history, looking for stories of missing persons along that stretch of road, or accidents involving pedestrians. I found nothing concrete, though there are whispered stories among older residents about travelers who took long time, found themselves on roads that shouldn't exist. What was he? A ghost? A hallucination? Something else entirely? I don't know. But I understand now what he was doing on that road. He wasn't seeking a ride to some physical destination. He was looking for a way in. And I'm increasingly certain that on that night, when reality seemed to ripple and shift around me, I inadvertently showed him one. Sometimes, when I look in the mirror now, my eyes seem darker than they used to. Just a little. Just around the edges.
In the night, come alive. Ain't it sneak? Ain't it?
I thought about what you wanted. Nothing I can do. All I want is you.
In the first night I heard the radio, I convinced myself it was just the old man saying. By the third night, I knew better. Something in this house was alive, and it wasn't me. I never wanted to move to Oak Ridge Lane. The neighborhood sat in a depression between two hills, where fog settled each evening like a shroud. But the rent was reasonable, and at just 15 minutes from my new job at the tech firm, the location was ideal. A small sacrifice for career advancement, I told myself. Just a stepping stone. A few years here, then I'd buy something better.
Back to the kitty, 'cause it's
Something
kinda
with
pretty.
history that
I can't stop looking at her.
wrong.
to face. Me and Cat Mama rolled into the distant fall.
It seemed oddly weird to have me sound. Looking back, I should have questioned why such an affordable house remained
Shawty's so kawaii and would die for her. Ride and watch hentai all the time with me. And till I die, all these lollies call me. Rubbing on her thigh, she stay wet for her. Shawty's so kawaii and would die for her. Ride and watch hentai all the time with me.
Appeared on the dining table. Back in the day, I always let her eyes closed when I arrived. My glasses relocated on the nightstand.
So why would you kiss me if you didn't have feelings for me? You take advantage of me.
About certain habits. Checking that windows are secure before leaving. Turning off lights before bed. So when I returned home to find the guest room window latched shut despite distinctly remembering cracking it open that morning to air out the musty smell, a chill crept up my spine. Not forgetfulness. Something else. The house itself was unremarkable. A modest 3-bedroom ranch built in the early 90s. Nothing about its architecture suggested anything sinister.
Whatever you say I am, if all I am, in the paper, the news, every day I am.
Countertops, and that persistent smell of dampness, I couldn't seem to eliminate regardless of how many candles I burned. After 3 weeks, I finally approached the property. Mr. Davenport was a thin man with perpetually damp balls who lived across town. When I mentioned the oddities I'd been experiencing, he smiled, tightened at the corners, a nervous tick pulling at his left eye. He claimed such things were common in houses built in that particular development. Something about settling foundations and an underground stream that caused electrical fluctuations. I pressed him about previous tenants having similar experiences, and his response haunts me still. He didn't deny it, only said that some people are more sensitive to their environments than others, before suggesting I invest in a carbon monoxide detector. The conversation ended with his uncomfortable laughter. Assurance that there was nothing to worry about. But there was. One Tuesday evening, I arrived home after a particularly day in the office. The autumn sun had already set, and the house loomed dark against the night sky. As I approached the front door,
by the way, are you going to
I
eat
noticed
that piece
something
of
that
cake?
made my blood run cold.
I'm not gonna
A light was on in the guest bedroom.
I found that you don't.
The room where things moved most frequently.
You're such a sweetie.
Where I
Thank
stored
you,
boxes
Ryuzaki.
still unpacked and books I hadn't shelved. Part of my brain suggested a power surge perhaps, or a time where I'd forgotten setting. But deep down, I knew that. Inside, the house was silent except for the persistent The guest room door stood slightly ajar, yellow light spilling onto the hallway carpet. I pushed it open fully, half expecting to find an intruder. The room was empty.
Who's that?
Books I'd stacked against the wall. My heart the journey as though written
What the fuck was you thinking?
electronics activating independently. The persistent feeling of sitting watching. It knows I'm leaving.
I suppose I am, if you can call this living. I see. Perfect monsters indeed.
The next morning, bleary-eyed and questioning my sanity.
20, 40, 80 up the trap. Hit it with the rap. Put it on the map. Hit me right back.
In its place sat my missing watch. The one I've been searching for since moving. Considered new by me, but financial ground and track. The security deposit and first month's rent rent had depleted my savings, and the new job's first paycheck didn't arrive for another month. I was stuck, at least temporarily. I began documenting everything, took photographs of rooms before leaving for work, only to return to subtle changes. A chair shifted 6 inches to the every night.
Get your main deal.
I'd lie awake listening to the house settle, or whatever was occurring behind the walls. Sometimes I heard scratching inside the drywall, like rodents skittering between studs. But no exterminator could find evidence of infestation. The worst were the nights I woke to the sound of breathing outside my bedroom door. Not heavy or menacing, but soft, measured, patient, as though someone stood just inches from the door, waiting. My throat would constrict, heart hammering so loudly I was certain whatever stood outside could hear it. The digital clock always showed the same time. 3:18 a.m. During one such episode, paralyzed from fear beneath my sheets, I watched the door
For all your dogs getting dirty, that's a K with all these nines. You don't see Pet Cemetery, nigga.
securing it with both the regular lock and a rubber door stop. But the deliberate motion of the handle left no doubt. Something wanted in. I began spending nights elsewhere whenever possible, crashing on a co-worker's couch under the pretense of late-night projects, or claiming my house was being fumigated. But I couldn't escape completely. My financial situation demanded I return eventually. One night, desperate for answers, I forced myself to stay awake until 3:18 a.m. Armed with nothing but a flashlight and waning courage, I positioned myself in the hallway, determined to confront whatever had been terrorizing me. As the digital clock on my phone ticked toward the dreaded time, the temperature plummeted. My breath formed visible clouds in the suddenly frigid air. At exactly 3:18, the electricity failed. Total darkness enveloped me, save for the weak beam of my flashlight. The silence was absolute. Not even the refrigerator hummed. Then came the breathing, not from outside my bedroom door this time, but directly behind me. I spun around, flashlight beam cutting through darkness, illuminating nothing but empty hallway. Yet the breathing continued, moving now, circling me. The beam caught something, a distortion in the air, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. The outline of a figure, transparent but undeniably present. My legs weakened, knees threatening to buckle. I backed toward the front door, never taking my eyes from the shimmer in the air. It followed, maintaining distance. Not aggressive, but interested, studying me as I had been studying it. I fumbled with the deadbolt, fingers numb with terror. As the lock clicked open, the presence surged forward. The temperature dropped further. Frost crystallized on the walls. My flashlight flickered and died. In the pitch darkness, I felt it. A cold pressure against my chest, like fingers pressing directly through skin to clutch at my hammering heart. A whisper directly in my ear. Stay. I bolted through the door and drove aimlessly until dawn, gulping coffee at an all-night diner while my hands trembled uncontrollably. When morning came, I called in sick to work and visited the county records office instead. The land records revealed nothing unusual about the property. No tragic deaths, no mysterious disappearances. Built in 1992, the house had seen a succession of short-term occupants, none staying longer than 8 months. The property changed hands frequently, sold at increasingly reduced prices. I was about to leave when the clerk mentioned something peculiar. Before the development was built, the land had housed a research facility owned by a now-defunct pharmaceutical company. There were rumors of sleep studies, experimental treatments for parasomnia and night terrors. Nothing confirmed, just local gossip from decades past. That evening, I returned to the house with a plan. I wouldn't be driven away like the others. Instead of running from the presence, I would acknowledge it. I sat in the center of the living room as darkness fell. No lights, no protection beyond my own resolve. Hours passed in silence. At 3:18 a.m., the familiar cold descended. The air shimmered across from me, condensing into that vague green outline. I know you're This is your home too. But it's also mine now. The presence remained, breathing audible in the stillness. I'm not leaving, I continue. So we need to establish boundaries. The shimmering figure drifted closer, my body streamed in front, but I remained seated, fists clenched against my thighs. You can stay in the guest room. That's yours. The rest of the house is mine. No moving my things. No lights after midnight. No standing outside my door. The temperature fluctuated wildly, freezing one moment, uncomfortably warm the next. The shimmer expanded, filling my vision, then contracted into one intense, black space. Not absence of light, but absence of everything. I don't know how long we remained in this standoff. Eventually, I must have fallen asleep from sheer exhaustion. I woke at dawn, still sitting upright on the living room floor, neck stiff and limbs aching. That was 2 months ago. We've reached an understanding of sorts, the presence and I. It keeps to the guest room mostly, though I occasionally glimpse that distortion of peripheral vision elsewhere in the house. My possessions remain where I leave them. The lights stay off after midnight. Sometimes I hear it breathing behind the guest room door. I never open it anymore. The strangest development came last week when Mr. Davenport called to check on me. He seemed surprised, almost disappointed to hear I was still living in the house. When I mentioned I'd come to an arrangement to replace a long silence followed before he muttered something about the house, finding another keeper. I don't know what he meant. I don't want to know. I could leave, I suppose. Find another apartment, use my security deposit, stretch my finances to break even. But something holds me here beyond economic necessity. The presence hasn't shown any malevolence since our agreement. Only curiosity, perhaps even loneliness. And lately, I don't wonder. Might the other work each morning? Does it watch from the windows, counting the hours until my return? Does it listen for my coming in the lobby with the same anticipation I once felt coming home to family? I still want my bedroom connection, but sometimes, in those weary moments between sleep and waking, I find myself listening for the soft breathing in the hallway, not with fear, but with the comfort of knowing I'm not alone in this house that exhales in perfect rhythm with whatever waits me on my door. Stain spreads. Each night, it grows a little more across the fabric of my cabin. I've tried everything: bleach, gasoline, industrial-grade solvents that burned my fingertips raw, but nothing removes it. The discoloration isn't red like gold or black like oil. It's something else entirely, a color that shouldn't exist, that has no name or language I know. And sometimes, when the light hits it just right, I swear it moves, pulsating like something alive, something hungry. It's been 43 days since the accident. That evening began like any other. I was riding my motorcycle back from my shift, taking the rural highway that cuts through abandoned lots on the edge of town. Most people avoid that stretch after dark. Poor lighting, crumbling asphalt, and a general sense of desolation that makes even rational men uneasy. But it saved me 15 minutes on my commute, and I'd taken it 100 times before without incident. The moon hung heavy in the sky, nearly full but partially obscured by thin, racing clouds. It created an effect like a strobe light, alternating between silver illumination and inky darkness as I leaned into the curves. The temperature had dropped unexpectedly and my fingers ached with cold inside my gloves. I remember thinking I should have worn the thermal liner. I never saw what caused the accident. Something in the road, perhaps. An animal, debris, or just a pothole hidden in shadow. My front wheel caught suddenly, and the bike kicked violently to the right. Years of riding experience triggered an automatic response, but it wasn't enough. The handlebars wrenched from my grip, and I felt that sickening weightlessness as my body separated from the machine. The impact knocked the wind from my lungs. I tumbled across the asphalt, my helmet scraping against the ground with a sound like distant thunder. When I finally stopped rolling, I found myself sprawled at an awkward angle against the curb, my left knee screaming in agony. My motorcycle lay on its side 30 feet away, at an empty sky. Pain radiated up my leg and caused me to waves. I attempted to stand, but collapsed back to the ground, teeth clenching to suppress a howl. The highway stretched empty in both directions. No cars, no lights except for my fallen bike and the inadequate street lamp spaced 2 feet apart. I fumbled for my phone with the screen shattered in the fall. Useless. That's when I felt it. A subtle change in air pressure, the peculiar sensation of no longer being alone. I didn't hear footsteps. One moment there was only me, my damaged bike, and miles of deserted road. And the next, a figure stood at the periphery of my vision. A man in faded jeans and outworn canvas jacket, his face obscured by an old-fashioned tan. Not the modern snapbacks or baseball caps you see everywhere, but one of those vintage flat caps, the kind working men wore in the 1940s. He didn't speak. I called out, asking if he had a phone, but he remained silent. He simply gestured toward me, then extended his hand. His movements were oddly fluid, almost too smooth to be natural. Despite the pain in my knee and the growing unease in my chest, I accepted his help. His grip felt wrong, not cold exactly, but absent of the expected warmth that comes from living flesh. It reminded me of touching the surface of a pond on a windless day. There was substance there, but it yielded in ways that seemed to defy physical laws. The man helped me to my feet and supported my weight as I limped toward my motorcycle. Together, we righted the bike and wheeled it to the shoulder. All the while, he never uttered a word, never showed his face clearly. I kept trying to engage him in conversation, asking his name, thanking him, questioning where he'd come from, but he responded only with gestures, a tilt of his head, a wave of his hand. When the bike was secure, he pointed down the highway toward a distant globe, a gas station about a half-mile ahead. I nodded my understanding and he stepped back, still facing me but with his features hidden beneath the shadow of his cap. I thanked him again and started to hobble away, using the guardrail for support. After about 50 yards, I turned back to wave, thinking perhaps he was waiting to ensure I could manage. The road behind me stretched empty under the pulsing moonlight. He had vanished as silently as he had appeared. I told myself there must have been a side road I hadn't noticed, or perhaps a path leading into the vacant lot beside the highway. The alternative, that he had simply disappeared, wasn't something my mind was prepared for. His expression shifting from boredom to concern, he asked what had happened, and I explained about the accident and the silent man who had helped me. The attendant's brow furrowed. He'd been on shift since 6 p.m., he said, and hadn't seen a single person walking along that stretch of road. No cars had stopped, and no one wearing an old cap came by the station. According to him, I was the only person to pass through in the last 3 hours. I might have dismissed his statement. After all, the man could have gone in another direction.
I just hope she don't wanna leave me.
He looked at me not with skepticism, but with
Give me up, please, don't give up on me. I
shook his head and reached for the phone.
don't
During the wait, I cleaned up in the restroom, carefully washing the scrapes on my palms and the blood from a small cut above my eye. My cap had survived the crash relatively intact, a worn canvas thing not unlike the one my mysterious helper had worn. I noticed it had picked up a strange stain near the brim, a discoloration I couldn't quite place. Not blood, which would have been dark red,
Word of my mother, she
and
fat,
not
she throwing
oil,
it back, she
which
give
would
me
have
the
been
snacks.
black.
Garlic, wait to put me on
This
her
was
back,
something
and game
else,
too deep, we dump it on the
something that
track.
seemed to shift color depending on how the fluorescent light hit it. I assumed it was just dirt from the roadside and stuffed the cap in my jacket pocket. The tow truck arrived an hour later. The driver helped me load my damaged motorcycle, and I rode in the cabin back to my apartment complex, my mind replaying the strange encounter over and over. By the time I crawled into bed that night, exhaustion had overtaken my unease, and I dismissed the entire experience as shock and adrenaline playing tricks on my perception. That should have been the end of it. 3 days later, I noticed the stain on my cap had grown. What had been a small discoloration near the grid now spread across nearly an inch of fabric, and it had changed somehow. Deeper, more vibrant, with edges that seemed to pulse slightly when viewed from the corner of my eye. I tossed the cap into the washing machine with my other laundry, using extra detergent for good measure. When I retrieved it later, the stain remained unchanged, impervious to the industrial strength cleaner. Over the following weeks, I tried everything to remove it. Specialized stain removers, bleach, even gasoline, but nothing worked. And all the while, it continued to spread, advancing across the fabric like an infection. Dreams came next. Vivid nightmares that left me gasping in sweat-soaked sheets. Always the same sequence. I'm riding my motorcycle down that empty highway. Pulses overhead, growing larger than each flash until it fills the entire sky with sickly light. Always, in the rearview mirror, a figure follows. First, on speed, wearing my old-fashioned hat. Features I can never quite see.
Obsessed with you?
Just as he reaches
Yes, yes I am.
the dreams might have been manageable, remain confined to sleep. But soon I began experiencing this continuity during my waking hours. Brief flashes where reality seemed to stutter, like frames missing from a film reel. The first incident occurred while I was shopping for groceries. One moment I was selecting apples, and the next I found myself in a parking lot with a cart full of items I didn't remember choosing. 20 minutes had vanished, erased from my memory. These episodes increased in frequency and duration. Sometimes I wake up in strange locations, a park bench across town, the lobby of a hotel I never visited, once even standing before the guardrail at the exact spot of my accident, with no recollection of how I got there. More disturbing are the changes to my apartment. Objects moved between nothing dramatic, just subtle movements inside the wrong shelf. Books facing spine inward on the bookcase. My motorcycle keys in the refrigerator. Always the cat displayed wherever I returned to consciousness. On the kitchen counter, the bathroom sink, once directly in the center of my pillow. No matter how many times I buried it in the bottom of the trash or stuffed it into distant corners or closets, it reappeared. I sought medical help, describing the blackouts and disorientation, while carefully omitting the more unexpected
No bra, no panties, no time to burn. Collecting gifts from a daddy in Canada. Chicken flicker in a thread that I couldn't get. Don't tap.
He suggested the accident might be caused by a traumatic brain injury too subtle to appear on scans, and prescribed rest and follow-up appointments. The medication he gave me for anxiety did nothing to stop the blackouts or the dreams. My research into the area where the accident occurred yielded little of use. The vacant lot had once been a small factory producing machine parts, demolished in the 1970s after a fire. Nothing in its history suggested tragedy or violence. No deaths, no disappearances, nothing that would seed the ground for the kind of haunting I was experiencing. If it was a haunting, perhaps the silent man never existed. Perhaps I had imagined him in a confusion following the crash. Perhaps the stain was simply something my damaged mind had fixated on.
I'm taking a puff. I start to feel like it's us. No trust, I do as you must. For real,
I hadn't taken them, at least not consciously. They appeared on my phone one morning after a particularly severe blackout that had left me waking up in my bathtub, fully clothed and shivering under cold water I had no memory of running. The images showed my empty apartment from various angles, as if someone had methodically documented every room. Except in each photo, barely visible at the edge of the frame, was a dark blur, the suggestion of a figure just stepping out of view. And in the final image, a close-up of my nightstand, sat the cat with its spreading stain, now covering nearly half the fabric with that impossible shifting color. Written in condensation on my bathroom mirror that same morning, in handwriting that was almost but not quite my own. He helps until he doesn't. Last night I returned to the site of the accident, not during the blackout, but deliberately. Driving my car slowly along that stretch of highway just after midnight. The road was as empty as it had been that night. The moon again playing hide and seek with racing clouds. I parked on the shoulder near where I had fallen and stepped out into the cooling air. The vacant lot stretched away into darkness. Tall weeds swaying in a breeze I couldn't feel. I stood motionless, waiting, though for what I couldn't have said. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. No silent figure emerged from the shadows. No answers presented themselves. Just as I turned to leave, my headlights illuminated something in the weeds several yards from the roadside. A flash of faded blue fabric. My heart hammered against my ribs as I approached. My flashlight beam dancing erratically with the trembling of my hand. There, half buried in the dirt and overgrowth, lay an old-fashioned cat identical to the one it bore a stain spread across its surface, the same indefinable color that now covered most of my cap at home. This stain had expanded further, consuming the entire fabric until the edge was somehow I knew that would be crossing a threshold from which there would be no return. Instead, I backed away, returned to my car, and drove home in a state of non-dissociation. The cap, my cap, was waiting on my pillow when I arrived. Its stain now expanded dramatically since morning. Only a small portion of the I understand now. The man who helped me that night was not a Samaritan. He wasn't even a man. He was something else. Something that has attached itself to me through that inexplicable stain. Something that grows stronger with each passing day, each blackout, each moment of lost time.
Thinking of wanting to get by. Something for your mind. Something for your
watching from just behind my eyes.
I wanna get you home and double up. I ain't talking about Playboy, but silicone parts I made for toys. I want them real, thick and juicy. So find that juicy double. Mix a lot in trouble. Making for a piece of that.
Why his grip felt so wrong.
But she gotta get her knees.
Disappeared so
She gonna suck me in, please.
I understand what's going on. The stain spreads. Each night it grows a little more.
But I don't sleep enough without you, and I can't eat enough without you. If you don't speak, does that mean we're through? Don't like sneaky shit that you do.
The shadows in this building don't behave like human shadows. They stretch when they shouldn't, contract when the light demands expansion, and sometimes, I swear, they move independently of their owners. This was on the third day working symptoms of sleep deprivation with quirks of outdated fluorescent lighting. Now 3 months into my new position at Meridian Consulting, I understand these aberrations were warnings, the building's way of communicating that it harbors something ancient and restless beneath its corporate veneer. The Meridian Tower stands isolated among a cluster of half-empty office buildings in what was once the city's thriving business district. Economic downturns transformed this area into a ghost town of concrete and glass. My relocation here came with a substantial salary increase, enough to overcome my initial hesitation about the commute to this desolate zone. The building itself is an architectural relic from the 1970s, 16 floors of rigorous design, with narrow windows and a facade of weathered concrete that appears almost porous in certain lights, as if the building itself were breathing. My department occupies the 8th floor. By department, I mean myself and 3 colleagues who I rarely see. The company operates on a flexible schedule system, and most employees choose to work remotely.
Why are you looking at yourself in the mirror?
The structure of an office environment, despite the very my office sits at the end of the eastern corridor, offering a view of abandoned construction projects and a distant skyline. The fluorescent lights flicker occasionally, and the ventilation system produces a constant whispering hum that becomes white noise after a few hours. The first incident occurred 3 weeks ago. I had stayed late to finish the quarterly financial projections, routine work that demanded focus rather than creativity. Around 8:30 p.m., I noticed a rhythmic flickering from the hallway. The light on the opposite end of the corridor pulsated in an unnatural pattern. 3 quick flashes followed by 2 longer ones, then darkness for 10 seconds before repeating. The security guard had left at 7, and I believed myself to be alone on the floor. My heartbeat quickened as I approached the disturbance. Each step on the thin carpet seemed to produce an echo that shouldn't have